My daughter told me I was too controlling, too old-fashioned, and that I needed to let go. What she didn't tell me was that she had been secretly plotting with my granddaughter, the child I raised from diapers, to take everything I had built. They thought I was just a tired old woman who wouldn't notice. They were wrong. This is how I walked away from both of them and built something they could never touch. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from in the comments below. Now, let me tell you my story. My name is Dorothy Jenkins, and I'm 58 years old. I've lived in the same house in Southeast Atlanta for 32 years. It's a modest brick ranch with a front porch that catches the morning sun just right and a backyard garden where I grow collard greens, tomatoes, and whatever else the good Lord allows to flourish. It's not much by today's standards, but it's mine. Every nail, every shingle, every flower bed was earned through decades of work as a school cafeteria manager. I raised my daughter Tanya in that house, just me. Her father left before she turned 2, said he wasn't ready for the responsibility. I never heard from him again, and honestly, I never wanted to. I didn't need a man to help me raise my child. I did it alone, worked double shifts, missed sleep, skipped meals. I gave that girl everything I had. Tanya was a beautiful child, smart, too. She made good grades in elementary school, had a bright smile that could light up a room, but somewhere around 13, 14 years old, she changed. She got angry, bitter. She started running with the wrong crowd, staying out late, talking back with a venom that cut deeper than any knife. By 16, she was pregnant. I remember the day she told me. She stood in my kitchen, arms crossed, defiant, daring me to be disappointed, and I was. Not because of the baby, but because I saw my own struggles about to repeat themselves in her life. I asked her what she wanted to do. She said she was keeping it. The father, some boy from her school, wanted nothing to do with it. History repeating itself. She had the baby at 17, a little girl, my granddaughter, Keisha. And for about 6 months, Tanya tried. She really did. But motherhood is hard when you're still a child yourself. She was tired, frustrated, resentful. She looked at that baby like it was a prison sentence. And she looked at me like I was the warden. One morning I woke up and Tanya was gone, just gone. No note. She left Keisha in the crib, bottle empty, diaper soiled, crying herself hoarse. The girl was 8 months old. I called Tanya's phone for 3 days. Straight. Filed a missing persons report. The police found her 2 weeks later, living with some man in Alabama. She told them she was fine, she was an adult, and she didn't want to come back. She didn't want to come back. She didn't want her baby. She wanted to be free. So I raised Keisha. I was 26 when I had Tanya. I was 43 when I started over with Keisha. I was tired, my body was older, my patience thinner, but that baby needed me. And I wasn't going to let her suffer for her mother's choices. I changed my work schedule. I learned how to braid hair all over again. I went to parent-teacher conferences, school plays, soccer games. I did it all alone. Again, Keisha was a good child, sweet, respectful, loving. She called me grandma, but I was more than that. I was her mother. I was the one who stayed, and I loved her with everything I had. Just like I had loved Tanya, maybe even more. Because this time I knew what I was doing. This time I knew what was at stake. Tanya would call maybe once a year, usually around the holidays. The conversations were stiff. She never asked about Keisha, not really, never sent money, never visited. She had moved on with her life. Gotten married to some man I never met. Had 2 more kids I only saw in Facebook photos. She had built a whole new family and erased us from it. I didn't push. I didn't beg. I just kept raising Keisha, kept working, kept building our life. And honestly, we were fine without her. Better even. Keisha grew up to be a beautiful, intelligent young woman. She graduated high school with honors. got a scholarship to Georgia State. I was so proud. I cried at her graduation, sitting in those bleachers, thinking about all the nights I stayed up helping with homework, all the sacrifices, all the love. It was worth it, every bit of it. But college changed her, not in the ways I expected. She came home less. Her visits got shorter. She started talking about her mother. Tanya had reached out to her on social media. She said they had been messaging. Tanya wanted to reconnect, wanted to explain. I should have seen it coming. I should have known. But I didn't. I was too busy being relieved that my baby was thriving, too busy being proud. I didn't see the trap being set. It started small. Keisha mentioning Tanya more often. Tanya this, Tanya that. Then came the visits. Tanya started coming to Atlanta to see Keisha. They would meet for lunch, go shopping, spend whole weekends together, and I wasn't invited. Keisha would tell me about it afterward, casually, like it was no big deal, like it didn't shatter my heart into 1,000 pieces every single time. I tried to be understanding. I tried to be the bigger person. Tanya was her mother, after all. They had a right to a relationship. I told myself I should be happy for them. But deep down, I felt something cold and dark growing in my chest. A sense of dread I couldn't shake. Then came Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Keisha asked if Tanya could come to dinner. Our dinner? At my house, I said yes. What else could I say? I cooked for 3 days. Turkey, dressing, mac and cheese, greens, sweet potato pie. Everything perfect. Everything just right. Tanya walked into my house like she owned it. Older now, heavier, wearing expensive clothes I knew she couldn't afford. She hugged me, stiff and awkward, her perfume too strong. She complimented the house, said it looked exactly the same, said it like it was a bad thing. Dinner was tense. Tanya and Keisha talked and laughed like old friends. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. I sat at the head of my own table and felt like a guest. Tanya finally acknowledged me. It was to make passive-aggressive comments. You still working at the school, Mama? That's good. Consistency is important, I guess. Keisha, you must be dying to get your own place after graduation. Little digs, little cuts, each one designed to make me feel small. After dinner, I was in the kitchen cleaning up when I heard them talking in the living room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the house is small and their voices carried. Tanya was asking Keisha about my finances, about the house, about whether I had a will. My blood ran cold. Keisha was laughing, saying she didn't know, that I never talked about money. Tanya's voice got lower, more serious. She said something I'll never forget. Baby, you need to start paying attention. Your grandma isn't getting any younger. That house is worth something now. This neighborhood is gentrifying, and legally, as her daughter, I'm next of kin. But you were the one who stayed. You deserve to be taken care of. We need to make sure things are set up right. My hands in soapy water, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. They were talking about my death like it was a business opportunity. Like I was already gone. I didn't confront them that night. I finished the dishes, said goodbye to Tanya with a smile, hugged Keisha goodnight. I waited until they both left, and then I sat in my dark living room and I cried. Not out of sadness, out of rage. Out of betrayal so complete it felt like my soul was being ripped in half. But I didn't stay in that darkness long, because something else started growing inside me. Something cold, something calculating, something that said, if they want to play games with my life, they're going to learn I'm not as helpless as they think. I decided I wasn't going to react. I was going to watch, and I was going to plan. The next few months, I played the role they expected. The tired old grandma, grateful for any attention, oblivious to what was happening around her. But I was paying attention to everything. I noticed Keisha started asking questions. Casual, careful questions. Grandma, do you have a will? What bank do you use? Do you have life insurance? I answered vaguely, changed the subject. Let her think I was disorganized, careless with my affairs. Tanya started visiting more often. Suddenly, after 20 years of absence, she was my concerned daughter. She'd show up unannounced, walk through my house like she was inspecting it, suggest I was getting too old to maintain it alone, said maybe I should think about downsizing, moving into a senior community. She even brought brochures, nice ones. She sat me down at my own kitchen table and said, "Mama, I've been thinking. You've worked so hard your whole life. You deserve to rest. What if we sold this house, got you set up somewhere easier to manage, and you could finally relax? Keisha and I could handle all the details for you." I looked at her. At this woman who had walked out on her child, who had abandoned us both, who was now sitting in my kitchen talking about taking my home, and I smiled. A sweet, tired old lady smile. "That's so thoughtful, baby," I said. "Let me think about it." I was already 10 steps ahead. I went to see a lawyer, not someone local, someone who might know Tanya or Keisha. I drove an hour out to Marietta and found a small firm specializing in estate planning. I met with a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Patricia Coleman. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Mrs. Jenkins, you're describing what we call undue influence and potential elder exploitation. These are serious issues. Let's make sure your assets are protected and your wishes are ironclad." Over the next month, Patricia and I built a fortress. We created a comprehensive will, crystal clear, legally airtight. We set up a living trust with specific instructions. We documented everything, every conversation, every suggestion Tanya and Keisha had made. Patricia even suggested I start recording our interactions, so I did. I bought a small digital recorder, the kind that fits in your pocket, and I started documenting everything, Tanya suggesting. "I sell the house," recorded Keisha. Asking about my bank accounts, recorded. The two of them, sitting in my living room one Sunday afternoon, discussing how much the house was worth and what they'd do with the money, recorded. I became a spy in my own life, gathering evidence of a betrayal I had already lived through once before. 3 months after that Thanksgiving dinner, Tanya and Keisha came to me together. They sat me down, both of them holding my hands, their faces masks of concern and love. It made me sick. "Grandma," Keisha started, her voice soft and sweet, "we've been talking. Mama and I, we're worried about you. This house is too much. You're getting older. What if something happens and you're here alone?" Tanya jumped in, her voice sticky with false concern. "We think it's time to make some changes. Mama, we found a beautiful senior living community. It's not a nursing home, it's independent living. You'd have your own apartment, no yard work, no maintenance. And we could sell this house, put the money somewhere safe, make sure you're taken care of." They had it all planned out, every detail. They'd even picked out the facility, already filled out half the application. I looked at them both. At Tanya, the daughter I had sacrificed everything for, who had abandoned her own child. At Keisha, the granddaughter I had raised, who was supposed to be different, who was supposed to be better. And I made my face crumple. I let tears fill my eyes. I let my voice shake. "I don't know," I whispered. "This is my home. I've been here so long." "We know, Mama," Tanya cooed, squeezing my hand. "But it's time. Trust us. We only want what's best for you." "Family?" The word tasted like poison. "Okay," I said finally, my voice small and defeated. "If you think it's best, I trust you." The relief on their faces was immediate. They hugged me, told me how proud they were of me for being so brave, so wise. They said they'd handle everything. All I had to do was sign some papers. I signed nothing. Instead, the next day I met with Patricia. I told her they had made their move. She smiled, a cold, professional smile, and said, "Then it's time to make yours." We spent the next 2 weeks preparing. Patricia filed all the necessary legal documents. We updated my will one final time, adding specific language about capacity and intent. We prepared a letter, a detailed account of everything that had happened, co-signed by Patricia and notarized. We moved my money out of the local bank Keisha had been asking about and into a new account at a credit union in another county. We listed the house with a realtor I trusted, a woman from my church who had known me for 20 years. And then I invited Tanya and Keisha over for Sunday dinner, one last time. They came dressed casually, comfortable, confident. They thought they had one. They walked into my house with smiles and shopping bags, talking about the senior community, about how excited they were for me, about how much easier my life was going to be. I served them dinner, fried chicken, greens, cornbread, all their favorites. We ate and talked, and I let them believe everything was going according to their plan. After dinner, I asked them to sit in the living room. I said I had something important to discuss. They exchanged a look, a quick conspiratorial glance. I remained standing. I pulled out a folder from the side table, one I had prepared that morning, and I placed it on the coffee table in front of them. Before we go any further, I said, my voice no longer shaking, no longer weak, I need you both to understand something. I know what you've been planning. I've known for months. Keisha's smile faltered. Tanya's face went very still. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of everything. The recordings transcribed, the legal documents, the new will, the trust, everything. I've been recording your conversations. My voice calm and cold. Every suggestion, every manipulation, every single time you talked about my house, my money, my death, like it was a payday. I have it all, and I've given copies to my attorney. Tanya stood up, her face flushing with anger. You had no right. My voice hard as steel. This is my home, my life, and you thought you could manipulate me, push me out, take everything I worked for. You thought I was too old, too tired, too stupid to see what you were doing. Keisha was crying now, but they weren't real tears. They were panicked tears, guilty tears. Grandma, it wasn't like that, she started, but I held up my hand. Don't insult me by lying now. I raised you. I know when you're lying. I took a breath. I've made my decision. This house is being sold, not to fund some assisted living I don't need, but because I'm leaving. I'm moving to North Carolina, to a town you've never heard of, into a house I've already purchased. The money from this sale, the money you were both counting on, is going into a trust that will fund my life for as long as I live. When I die, whatever is left goes to charity, not to you, Tanya, not to you, Keisha, to organizations that actually help people. The room was silent. The weight of what I was saying, the finality of it, was sinking in. But Grandma, Keisha whispered, her voice broken. I'm your granddaughter. You raised me. You love me. I looked at her. This girl I had poured my life into, and I felt nothing but a cold, distant sadness. I did love you, I said quietly. I loved you more than my own life, but you made a choice. You chose her over me. You chose money over loyalty. You chose to see me as an obstacle instead of as the woman who gave up everything to raise you when your own mother walked away. I turned to Tanya. And you've always been selfish. Walked out on your baby, and now you're trying to walk back in to take what I built, but you get nothing. You lost the right to call yourself my daughter the day you left that baby crying in her crib. Tanya's face was a twisted mask of rage and disbelief. You're out of your mind. You can't do this. I'm your next of kin. I have rights. You have no rights, I said. And I pulled out one more document from the folder. This is a restraining order. If either of you contact me, come near my new home, or attempt to contest my will, you will face legal consequences. My attorney has made that very clear, and I have enough evidence of your attempted exploitation to make sure you never see a penny. I picked up the folder and walked to the front door. I opened it, the evening air cool and clean. and I turned back to look at them one last time. "Get out of my house," I said. "Both of you. And don't ever come back." Tanya first, stomping out with rage radiating from every step. Keisha followed, slower, her face crumpled with tears and shock. She paused at the door, looked back at me like she wanted to say something, but I just stood there, my face hard, my resolve absolute, and she left. I closed the door behind them and locked it. And then I stood in the hallway of my empty house and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Move happened quickly. I sold the house within 3 weeks to a young couple with a baby. They loved the garden, loved the porch. I told them the house had good bones and was filled with love. I hoped they'd be happy there. I packed up 32 years of my life into boxers. I donated most of it. Furniture, clothes. I kept only what mattered. My mother's china, a few quilts my grandmother had made. The essentials of a life well lived but not weighed down by the past. Patricia handled all the legal details. She made sure every document was filed, every signature notarized, every detail locked down tight. She even helped me find the house in North Carolina, a small cottage near Asheville with a mountain view and a front porch that gets the morning sun. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not the neighbors, not the church ladies, not anyone who might pass the information along. I simply disappeared. The day I left Atlanta, I drove past the old house one last time. The new family was already moving in. I saw the young mother standing on the porch, holding her baby, looking happy and hopeful. It made me smile. I've been in my new home for 8 months now. I'm writing this from my front porch, looking out at the mountains. It's quiet here, peaceful. I've made a few friends, joined a book club, started volunteering at the local library. I'm building a new life, a life that belongs to me and no one else. Tanya tried to call a few times in the beginning. I blocked her number. Keisha sent letters. I returned them unopened. They hired a lawyer to contest the will, but Patricia shut that down fast. The recordings, the clear documentation of my mental competency, it was all there. They had no case. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Keisha dropped out of school. She moved back in with Tanya. I feel a small sadness about that, a ghost of the love I used to feel. But mostly, I feel nothing. They made their choices. They have to live with them. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I regret cutting them off so completely, and my answer is always the same. No, because here's what I learned. Sacrifice is only noble if it's honored. Love is only real if it's reciprocated. And family, real family, isn't about blood. It's about loyalty. It's about who stays. They didn't stay. They circled like vultures, waiting for me to die so they could pick over what was left, and I refused to give them the satisfaction. I'm 58 years old. I have my health, my home, my peace of mind. I have years left to live, and I'm going to live them on my terms, not as someone's burden, not as someone's paycheck, not as the tired old woman they thought I was. I'm Dorothy Jenkins. I raised a daughter who betrayed me and a granddaughter who chose greed over love, but I survived. I walked away, and I built something new. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, if you've been used or taken for granted by the people you loved most, I want you to hear me. You are not too old. You are not too tired. You are not powerless. You have the right to protect what's yours. You have the right to walk away from people who only see you as a means to an end. You have the right to build a new life at any age, on your own terms. Don't let anyone tell you different. I gave them everything, and they wanted more. So I gave them nothing, and I've never slept better. Some people think closure comes when family apologizes, when they realize what they've lost, when they come crawling back with tears and regrets. I don't believe that anymore. Real closure comes when you stop waiting for people to see your value, when you stop hoping they'll change, when you walk away and close the door behind you and never look back. That's what I did. And if you're in a situation like mine, That's what I'm telling you to do. To protect yourself, love yourself, and never, ever let anyone make you feel small in your own life. They thought they buried me. They thought they'd won, but I'm still here, living my best life, free. And that's a kind of revenge they'll never understand.